Hello and welcome to the Story Shed. I have another story for you, again from Grandma's Magic Storybook. It is truly magical. This is a classic story. You probably all know it already, but I'm going to read it because we've already done the Snow Queen and now I'm going to do Snow White. Yeah, with the dwarves and all of that. Yeah. So sit back, relax, and hopefully enjoy Snow White. Once there was a king and queen who lived in a distant land. They were very happy apart from one thing. They had no children. "Oh," said the queen, "how I wish I had a daughter with skin as white as snow, hair as black as a raven's wing, and lips as red as cherries." Within a year the queen's wish was granted, and they had a beautiful baby girl who they called Snow White. Soon after her birth the queen died, and the king eventually remarried. The new queen was very beautiful, but also very vain and very wicked. She could not bear to think that anyone was more beautiful than her. Every day she would stand in front of a magic mirror and say, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" And the mirror would reply, "Well, you're the fairest one of all." However, as the years passed, Snow White grew up to become more and more beautiful, until one day the magic mirror told the wicked queen, "You were the fairest, shining bright, but now much fairer is Snow White." The queen was furious. She sent for a servant, and she told the servant to take Snow White into the forest and leave her there for the wild animals to eat. And so it was that Snow White found herself alone in the forest. At first she was scared, but soon the animals took pity on her and led her to a pretty little cottage. She knocked on the door, and there was no answer, so she walked right in. The inside of the cottage was as pretty as the outside. In the middle of the room stood a little neat table, set with 7 places and surrounded by 7 little chairs. Feeling hungry and thirsty, Snow White took a little bread from each of the plates and a little milk from each of the cups, and then, feeling tired, she curled up on one of the 7 beds and fell into a deep sleep. The cottage belonged to 7 dwarfs. Every morning they left their cottage to dig for jewels and gold in the hills, and every evening they returned home to eat and sleep. When they returned home that night, at once they noticed they had a visitor. "Somebody's been eating my bread," said one. "Somebody's been drinking my milk," said another. "Somebody's been sleeping in my bed," said another. "Look, she's still here." Quickly all the dwarfs gathered round the bed to look at their sleeping visitor. "Isn't she lovely?" said one. "Let's leave her to sleep," said another, and so they left her until the morning. When Snow White awoke, the 7 little dwarfs were gathered around her bed. They were so kind that she told them her story. Now the dwarfs all agreed that Snow White should stay with them, and every day, when they went to dig for jewels and gold in the hills, Snow White stayed at home, cleaning and cooking. So the years passed, and Snow White grew more and more beautiful. Meanwhile, now the queen thought Snow White was dead, and she hadn't bothered looking in her mirror. Then one day she thought she felt a spot growing on her chin, and went to the mirror to check. While she was there, she asked, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" Now you can imagine her surprise when the mirror replied, "In the dwarf's house in yonder hill, Snow White is the fairest still." The queen turned red with fury. Now, determined to get rid of Snow White once and for all, she began to plot straight away. The following morning the queen dressed up as an old woman. She filled a basket with pretty things and went to the dwarf's cottage. "Buy something from a poor old woman," she cackled. Of course, Snow White, being such a kind-hearted young girl, let her in at once. "Oh, these are so pretty," said Snow White, pulling some ribbons from the basket. "Yes, perfect for lacing your dress," agreed the old woman. Snow White let the old woman lace her dress with the colourful ribbon, but the wicked queen pulled the ribbon so tight that Snow White fell to the ground. The wicked queen thought she was dead. When the 7 dwarfs arrived home, they rushed to Snow White's side and quickly untied the ribbon. Snow White gulped a huge breath and soon recovered. "It must have been the wicked queen," decided the dwarfs. "From now on, you must always be on your guard. When we're away from here, you must not let anyone in." Meanwhile, the queen had raced back to the castle and rushed to the mirror. "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" And the mirror had replied, "In the dwarf's house in yonder hill, Snow White is the fairest still." The queen couldn't believe her ears. Once again she began to plot. In the morning the queen called at the dwarf's house, dressed as a beggar woman with a basket of pretty combs she had dipped in poison. "I can't let you in," Snow White shouted from the window. "Never mind," croaked the old woman. "Why don't you just try this pretty comb in your lovely hair?" The comb was so pretty that Snow White leaned out of the window and allowed the old woman to push it into her hair. And as soon as the comb touched Snow White's skin, she fell to the ground. Luckily for Snow White, the 7 dwarfs came home early that day, and when they saw her lying there, they guessed what had happened and removed the comb from her hair at once. Again, Snow White was quick to recover. Once again, the dwarfs warned her about the danger of strangers. The queen, meanwhile, was in a rage, for she once again had been told, "In the dwarf's house in yonder hill, Snow White is the fairest still." Now she was more determined than ever to destroy Snow White. So the next morning she picked an apple that was half red and half green and injected poison into one half of it. Then, dressed as a farmer's wife, she called on Snow White. "I just want to give you this juicy apple," smiled the farmer's wife, holding up the half red and half green apple. "Look, it's not poisoned or anything. I'll take a bite from it myself." And she took a bite from the half of the apple that wasn't poisoned. Seeing the apple did the farmer's wife no harm, Snow White took it and took a bite, but as soon as she did, she fell down as if dead. That night, when the dwarves arrived home, there was nothing they could do to wake Snow White, for although she wasn't dead, she was in a very deep sleep, a sleep so deep that it seemed as though she would never wake. Feeling very sad, the 7 dwarfs built her a glass coffin and placed her in the hills, where all who passed could admire her beauty, for although she slept for year after year, her beauty never changed. Her skin remained as white as snow, her hair was as black as a raven's wing, and her lips were as red as cherries. Then one day a handsome prince saw the glass coffin and fell in love with the sleeping princess. "You must let me take her back to my castle," said the prince. "I cannot live without seeing such beauty every day." At first the dwarfs were very reluctant to agree, but at length they saw that the prince truly did love Snow White and agreed to let him take her to the castle. Very carefully the 7 dwarfs lifted the glass coffin onto their shoulders and started down the hillside. But they stumbled, and the piece of poisoned apple was shaken from Snow White's throat. She awoke at once, and on seeing the prince she too fell in love. They had a grand wedding. The whole kingdom was invited, and all agreed that the bride was the fairest of all. Meanwhile, the wicked queen had discovered that her evil plan had failed, and in her anger she smashed her mirror and never looked at her reflection again. And that's the end of the story of Snow White. It's a classic tale, and we hope you enjoyed it. If you did, then let us know. You can write to us at thestoryshed@gmail.com. That's thestoryshed@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you. But in the meantime, take care, be well, and bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.